This hat was donated in 1972 by Pauline A. Quickle Callahan and belonged to her aunt, Hattie L. Hoffman Kaufman. The hat itself is constructed of black dyed straw, but it is the adornment of a bird with plumes of white feathers that truly captures the eye. The bird attached to this hat is a bird of paradise that has been dyed black but has retained its luxurious plumage of iridescent feathers. The discovery of birds of paradise can be dated back to the 16th century when European merchants returned from Indonesia with prepared specimens known as trade skins. The trade skins were brought to Europe by surviving Magellan crew members from the circumnavigation of the globe in 1522 and spurred Euro-American interest scientifically and aesthetically. Birds of paradise were named as such from the removal of the legs during preparation of trade skins. Europeans speculated that because of the absence of feet, the birds simply did not have them and spent their lives perpetually suspended between heaven and earth. Eventually, complete trade skins, including feet, were brought to Europe in the early 1600s, refuting this idea. It wasn't until the 19th century that naturalists were able to scientifically study the birds of paradise. Naturalist Alfred Russel Wallace made a collecting trip to the Malay archipelago of Southeast Asia to look for natural history specimens and returned 8 years later with over 125,000 specimens, consisting dominantly of birds and insects, including live birds of paradise. In his subsequent book written after his trip, Wallace recounts local knowledge of birds of paradise and indigenous hunting and preservation techniques. It is due to the expertise of the indigenous hunters that Wallace was able to observe the behavior of the birds of paradise firsthand and led to the publishing of the first scientific description of the mating behavior of the birds of paradise in 1857 in the Annals and Magazine of Natural History. It was Wallace's descriptions of the mating behaviors of the bird of paradise that helped to corroborate Darwin's theory of sexual selection. Hats decorated with bird feathers, wings, and entire bodies were a fashionable craze that can be dated back to the 18th century. It is believed that Marie Antoinette set a fashion craze into motion when she appeared in a headdress with feather plumes. The first 2 decades of the 20th century are often called the plume boom, and birds of paradise were the most desirable because of their luscious mating plumes as well as their rarity. During this time, affluent women in elite social circles sought after plumes that matched their outfits, and explains why our example of a bird of paradise was dyed black. Because women with higher social status created the market for millineries, plumassiers went through a labor-intensive process in order to dye the birds of paradise black. The process is described in a 1922 edition of Millinery and took 6 days to complete. From 1905 to 1920, 30,000 to 80,000 bird of paradise skins were exported to London, Paris, and New York. In Our Vanishing Wildlife, W.T. Hornaday provides a lamenting message regarding the effect fashion popularity was having on the living population of birds of paradise. Bird lovers must now bid farewell forever to all the birds of paradise. Nothing but the legal closing of the world's markets against their plumes and skins can save any of them. They were never numerous, nor does any species range over a wide area. They are strictly insular, and the island homes of some of them are very small. During the plume boom, many species of the bird of paradise were almost wiped out to extinction. Killing birds for the millinery trade was addressed in the 1920s when all birds of paradise species became protected from export out of New Guinea. It is also due to the popularity of the bob and other short hairstyles becoming fashionable that also saved the birds. These shorter hairstyles didn't support such large hats, and cloches took over as the new fashion craze. Although it is now illegal to hunt or export birds of paradise, their numbers are still dwindling today due to the destruction of their habitats in New Guinea for gold, copper, timber, and coffee. Feathers are extremely fragile and require careful handling and care. They are also susceptible to pests and require regular monitoring. As you can see from the footage of this hat, the bird has losses of its feathers in addition to some wear. This likely happened prior to its arrival here due to inadequate temperatures and storage practices. In order to minimize any more losses and any additional damage to the feathers, we are going to create a mount that will keep the hat upright in storage and minimize any further damage. A cross column is created out of corrugated archival board. This consists of two rounded shapes that fit into one another. A form is created to fit on top of the cross column. The form is covered with batting and then muslin. The form is covered in archival tissue. The hat is then fit onto the form and placed on the storage mount, ready for storage in our storage environment.